This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
From Philadelphia to Erie and from Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewald, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. I'm joined by my co-host, Mara Donnelly. Mara, welcome.
Hello, Charlie.
It's nice to see you. And in the new year, one of the things that will continue to be a large issue in Pennsylvania is education and higher education in Pennsylvania. We're fortunate to have with us today one of the best people in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to talk about higher education, Ken Mash, who is president of APSCUF, the Association of Pennsylvania State College University Faculty. Ken, what's new? What are the concerns that APSCUF has coming into the new calendar year?
Well, first of all, hello again.
Hello.
Charlie.
Nice to see you.
Nice to have you
Good
back.
to be here again. Our concern is really always with our students, and we have real questions about affordability and what it is that the Commonwealth is going to do, what the national government's going to do to try and make public higher education more affordable. We have seen a situation now where it's really cost about $100,000 for a 4-year education at one of our universities, and we've seen those costs go up and up and up over the last few years. We have not kept up as far as our state allocation goes. We're at like 1997, 1999 levels of funding, and it still costs money to run the university, so we've seen increasingly the cost being pushed down to students.
So there's a direct correlation between the amount of money that comes from the state of Pennsylvania and the level of tuition. So the lower that keeps going, the higher tuition keeps going.
Yeah, there's a direct correlation.
Yeah.
You can actually chart it out,
Yeah.
that as
Yeah.
funding has gone down, the cost of public higher education has gone up. And for me and for my colleagues, for the most part, we really truly believe in the mission of the state system of higher education, which is to provide a high quality education at an affordable cost. And when you have these kind of economic pressures and financial pressures constantly, you really put both things at risk. And the real question is, are we truly providing opportunities for working class people to achieve the American dream? It seems a little sappy, but it's really true. We're afraid that we're pricing people out, and we've seen it, I think, among the universities that are in the northern tier of the Commonwealth, in particular, and some of our universities that are out west.
Yeah, you have some pretty amazing statistics about the drop-off in enrollment. That's got to be related to the cost of the education.
Yeah, well, some of that drop-off is just natural because there was a bubble as far as births go at one point, and we had reached a high point. We're down about 5% since I think it was like 1996 or something. But we're concerned because we believe that there are populations out there who really truly would be going to our universities if they could afford to do so. And when we look at the stats and we see that only 40% of Pennsylvanians have an education beyond high school, then we start to wonder what is going on out there. And we know, too, that the number of students that we have that fill out FAFSA forms in Pennsylvania and apply for scholarships, that's well below the national average. So we need to be doing things to encourage students to apply for financial aid, but we also seriously need to look at what we're doing to our future by not properly funding public higher education.
Well, Ken, for anyone like Mara and myself who try to follow public affairs in Pennsylvania, APSCUF has done a wonderful job over the years in getting this message out about college affordability and the need for sufficient level of state support. I think in the 1980s, the Commonwealth was providing about 60% of the costs of running the state system. Today, it's about 25%. That's a huge drop.
Yeah, I think it's even less than 25% at some of our universities, like Millersville University, which has gone to a per-credit tuition model. Actually, the students are even picking up a higher portion of that. And again, there's an impact. If we want a Commonwealth that's going to be attractive for businesses to come, high-tech industries, which are which is the future, then we have to be able to have a highly educated population. And we're not going to do that unless we commit the resources to doing that.
Well, I guess my question, Ken, though, was Maura and I and many people that try to follow public policy here in Pennsylvania are aware of this issue because of APSCUF. What's the awareness on Capitol Hill? As you go walk through the halls of Capitol Hill and meet with our legislators, do they have a strong awareness of this or not? What can be done to bring this home to them?
Well, I think it's always important for people to be in contact with their legislators and to talk about a whole variety of issues, among which is this one, too. We've spread the word pretty much, and I think a lot of legislators understand that Pennsylvania is 47th when it comes to per capita funding for public higher education. And I think there's general agreement, and it's bipartisan agreement that that's not sufficient. When we get back to that idea that our universities are supposed to be helping people, working class people, I don't think that's a partisan issue. And in fact, when we have conversations with people, both sides understand it. But I do think that we're sort of caught up, like everybody else, in the overall budget issues that are hanging over the Commonwealth. What we're looking forward to doing in this next year is taking some of the studies that have been done by the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, and the Keystone Research Center, making them more broadly known. And we are looking forward to the fact that they are going to be advocating for some sort of serious, either free tuition or some portion of it, of paying for college, to help advocate for that, to get awareness up out there that there really truly is an issue. When we say free tuition and things like that, it's not free college. There's obvious costs that remain, including housing, which has gone up like 75% since 2000. So, I mean, there's still costs out there, but we've got to do something to help working class people. They're the ones that are feeling the pinch. I think after the tax bill and the national government level, they're still the ones who are going to be feeling the pinch. We need to look at ways that we're going to make people's lives better, and in doing so, improve the overall economy in the Commonwealth.
You've had some really successful student rallies. Are you planning any when the weather starts to warm up?
Yeah, I
don't think they want to come in February. So
no, I'm not sure I want to stand out there in February too. I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and do what we always do, which is try and plan out a strategy that will be the most effective. Our intention is to work with students and with other interested parties to form a coalition to be making this case loudly. That may include a rally at some point.
Good.
Ken, recently APSCUF had to have its first strike, which was how long? 2 days?
It was 3 days.
3 days. A 3-day strike, and things were settled rather quickly after that. And now the state has offered the state faculty a 1-year continuation, and it looks like that's going to be wrapped up fairly soon. What is in the offing for the union's relationship with the state? How does that look?
Well, when it comes to negotiations, first of all, I think everybody agrees that a strike is a failure on everyone's part. So we've talked to them already about what can we do to make the process better. And I think we're going to be focused on doing that in this extra time that we have. But we continue to be concerned about the role that the faculty play at our universities. Nobody works with students more than the faculty do. Nobody understands academia like the faculty do who are in their disciplines. But yet we've seen a reduced voice for faculty. And there's been some attacks on the union itself as being the representative of the faculty. But I think our faculty are convinced that APSCUF is the proper mechanism to hear out what the faculty think on issues in higher education in Pennsylvania.
Where can people, our viewers, get their hands on these Keystone reports, the studies that have been done?
Yeah, you can look on our website, which is appscuf.org, or on the Keystone Research Center website, which I believe is krc.org.
Okay, that's great.
And what you're referencing there are that APSCUF has gone out and created a relationship with the Keystone Research Center, and they have done some additional work on this above and beyond what anyone else has done here in Pennsylvania to talk about some of these issues and quantify them. Is that fair to say, Ken?
Yeah, they've done 4 reports now.
Okay.
And they've really delved into the issue in a major way.
So in addition to the college affordability discussion, it's a new year. What else are you going to be working on?
Well, we're going to be looking at our universities and what we can do to better serve our students, which we're always going to do. We're going to be looking at some of our universities like Mansfield and others as they come up with strategies to try and increase enrollment. And as I was suggesting before, we're going to heavily push to try and reach out to high school students to get them to fill out financial aid forms and do things like that to show them that there is still the possibility of getting this degree, which study after study shows pays off in the long run for students.
One of the questions, Ken, that's out there as we approach the end of our time together is some people over the years have wondered about the future of some of the schools with lower enrollments and from areas that are less populated, such as Mansfield, for example. What does the union foresee as the future for the whole system for the 14 universities?
Well, we tend not to look at our universities as solely regional universities, and we believe that if the universities were truly affordable, they would be attracting people from all across the Commonwealth. Again, we have a very different perspective. We put first the mission of what our universities are supposed to be, and I think it's dangerous when we start pointing to universities and we're saying universities are failing, when I think the overall problem is we're just not supporting those universities. So what we need to do is to properly support those universities, properly support students who want to attend those universities, because the overall goal continues to be to provide opportunities to students. So, that's what we focus on. For us, the universities themselves are just the instruments by which you obtain that goal.
Okay.
Okay, well, we are at the end of our time. We wanted to, Maura and I have other questions. We'll just have to hold those for the next time you come back, Ken. But we want you to hold your position on the dial, and we'll be right back after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, helping hospitals provide healing, health, and hope to communities across the state. And by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. The Pennsylvania Chamber serves as the frontline advocate for business on Pennsylvania's Capitol Hill by influencing the legislative, regulatory, and judicial branches of state government. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Welcome back to the second half of Behind the Headlines. On this half of the show, Maura and I are fortunate enough to have with us Bob Latham, who is the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors.
Hi, Charlie. Hi, Maura.
Hello.
So we're glad to have you back here.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
And in the new year, one of the biggest subjects in government will continue to be infrastructure. We've talked with you about your organization's attempts to upgrade infrastructure around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania before. We find infrastructure problems all over. How would you evaluate the infrastructure in Pennsylvania? What's the big picture, Bob?
Well, you're right. The president has called for a national investment in infrastructure. And thankfully, a number of years ago here in Pennsylvania, we went ahead and did it on our own, not waiting for the federal government to do it. Hope that President Trump's package will come forward soon and allow us to do these kinds of major investments that they're talking about. But what we did here in Pennsylvania was pass a transportation funding bill in 2013, known as Act 89, and we're starting to see the dividends paid from that investment over and over again. We talked about Act 89 at the time, or the transportation bill. Of course, we increased funding, which means you and I, and we all pay a little bit more in order to have good roads and good transit and good ports and rail, and also money for local governments, which helps with property taxes. But the question is, the voters want to know: are you spending your money wisely? Are we accomplishing anything? What are you doing with the money? I mean, it was a big lift. So I'm pretty happy to report we're making tremendous progress with our bridges, and we're seeing a reduction in fatalities on our highways of a huge amount. So we promised safety, convenience, and quality of life with Act 89, and we're seeing that being delivered now, just 4 years later.
So how many bridges?
Prior to the passage of the bill, we had 6,000 bad bridges, I call it, on our inventory. These are not necessarily going to fall down, but they were definitely in need of repair, in need of shoring up. In some cases, they had to be weight limited, so commercial traffic couldn't go over them. We have reduced that inventory almost in half, from 6 to 3,000.
And that's really only in 4 years.
That's in
pretty
4 years.
amazing.
That's very amazing.
Yeah.
So we've really tackled it. Also, our pavement conditions have improved markedly because we're doing a lot of paving projects. The amount of construction contracts that the Department of Transportation has awarded over the years increased from an average of about 1.6 billion up to 2.4, 2.5. So that's a big increase. So we're seeing that investment. And I think the thing to point out to people is that it's not government workers doing the job. These are private companies that do the design and the construction work, fixing our roads and bridges.
You know what I bet? I don't know if you can quantify this, but I'm guessing there are fewer flat tires, fewer car issues, fewer repairs being needed. I don't know if anybody's been able to do that, but with the roads being improved, especially if, like me, you're driving an older car, I'm happy with smoother roads. And there's got to be a way to quantify that, don't you think?
Well, there is, and there are a number of organizations that have looked at what bad roads do to the cost
cars.
of driving.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things we have to look at is what do good roads do to reducing that
Exactly,
cost.
exactly.
But
There's
you
gotta be a
have
number.
it right. It less in terms of front end alignments, less in terms of tire repair, less in terms of overall wear and tear to your automobile.
No, there's nothing we can do about the salt and cinders in the middle of the winter, but I bet you there's some incredible numbers when it comes to car repairs being needed.
Absolutely. The other thing is when we reduce congestion, particularly in our urban areas, and resolve that, that's wasted time and wasted fuel that is no longer wasted. The other thing we're seeing we're going to see a couple of very big major projects, and speaking of our urban areas, we have a lot of work going on I-95. That's the nation's artery, but at the same time it's also a commuter road in Philadelphia. A little bit of pain right now going on there with the construction, but eventually that'll pay dividends. We're seeing a big project in the central part of the state, in what we call the Central Susquehanna Valley Expressway up around Selinsgrove. That'll be a great gateway to the north central part of the state, and then of course out in Pittsburgh, a lot of work around the Mon Valley, completing that Mon-Fayette Expressway and the Southern Beltway. That'll open up those whole corridors and make it easier to get around western Pennsylvania as well. So we're seeing a lot of progress. But the most important thing, I think, is some of the very small work that we're doing, just little things like rumble strips and improved guide rail and small safety interchange projects. That's where we're seeing the dividends in the reduction of fatalities. People are not running off the road and hitting objects like they used to. Well, I mean, these are small things that can happen. We have a lot of rural roads. I mean, we have 2 big cities and some smaller cities, but we also have a lot of farmland and a lot of country roads, if you will. You're seeing a big improvement from PennDOT on the smoothness of those roads, but also the safety.
Well, I think Mara and I have noticed, and I think many of our viewers have noticed, 2 years ago there wasn't much going on out there in terms of construction and repair. Now, construction and repair seems to be going on everywhere around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, thanks to Act 89. The one thing I wanted to touch on before we go into the new year and what your organization hopes to do then. Act 89, too, it's important to remember that was a bipartisan effort that your organization helped spearhead, isn't that right?
Absolutely. There were votes on both sides of the aisle, and I think that a number of members of the General Assembly, particularly the House leadership, Senate leadership, both Republican and Democrat at the time, and many of them are still there today, they can really look back at this and be proud of what they did there. And again, when you think about the many things that the General Assembly has to address and look at, safety of people, mobility, and the improvement in the economy and how that will all tie together, I think they can be very proud of that effort.
Well, it's so rare for the General Assembly to find common ground, isn't it? That's something they can agree on and work constructively on together.
Well, we always say that roads and bridges are bipartisan.
Yeah. And it really became a model for other states, too, didn't it?
That's correct. And about 22 other states subsequently passed legislation. The only thing that all of us are a little bit frustrated is when we go to our congressional representatives and point out to them that nobody ever lost an election voting for transportation funding. You still get these blank stares like, well, that's somewhere else as well. It's your state too. But hopefully we'll get something done in the new year with the president's push on infrastructure.
Well, 2018 is here, and we wondered what are your main objectives for this forthcoming year. And we talked off camera. I know one of them is certainly automated speed enforcement in work zones. Perhaps you can tell us, what is automated speed enforcement? What is that?
What we're trying to do is find a way to get people to slow down in highway work zones. It's that simple. Because we have a lot more work going on, we have a lot more work zones. We're not doing new construction through farm fields. We're rehabilitating our existing system. Fix it first. It's most important that we fix our existing system. We have to do that under traffic. And we have to get people to slow down. They just are not slowing down in highway work zones. What we observed in the state of Maryland is that they implemented sort of a camera, a radar system that if a motorist is speeding through a highway work zone, they are automatically sent a speeding ticket. And guess what happened down there? Over a short period of time, the amount of fine revenue went down because people stopped speeding through work zones, which is exactly what we're trying to do. We don't want any money. The ultimate goal would be there would be no collection of fines from this. And then we would just have, it is a big safety issue. Motorists themselves are killed and injured more in work zones than workers. We're representing the construction industry. We care about our workers. We want our people to come home. It's a very, very dangerous situation. Even at 55 on an interstate, it's dangerous. When they're going by at 85, that's really tough. And you know, I mean, at 55, in a matter of just a couple of seconds, you travel the length of 2 football fields. That's a long way to go like that. Yeah. So we're really trying to get people to slow down. That's the objective there. The bill passed the Senate in 2017. It was also reported out of the House Transportation Committee. We're hoping to get it over the goal line this year.
I think that would be great.
The other thing is we talked about sort of this diverting money from transportation over to the general fund.
Is that still happening?
Again, I think we can look at the General Assembly and Governor Wolf as working together on at least stopping the bleeding, I would say, particularly in 2017, and reducing and reverting some of that money back to the motor license fund. In our minds, we still have a tremendous amount of money that's going out of the highway fund to the general fund. We'd like to see that stopped and accelerated back so we could even do more on the roads, but at least we've stopped that disturbing trend of more and more.
And I understand you have you want to go after some hybrid and alternative fuels vehicles a little bit. How are you going to do that?
You mentioned the other states that followed our lead with Act 89, and what we've seen is that on those 19 states, 11 of them actually included a mechanism to increase registration fees for electric vehicles and alternate fuel vehicles, because they're not paying. I mean, they're using the roads, they're not really paying for them.
And we didn't do that. It was very.
We did not do that in our legislation. We have actually a law on the books that requires collection of fees from autonomous vehicles. It goes back to not autonomous vehicles, but alternate fuel vehicles, electric cars, and natural gas powered cars. It goes back to 1997, but it needs to be modernized, upgraded, and then take another look at where we go in the future. Obviously, we're going to have to at some point look at our transportation funding system in light of new technologies and things that are coming on board.
One of the other things that's also the Commonwealth has struggled with, and your association has been involved with, Bob, is the whole notion of how much money should be taken out of the highway funds to support the Pennsylvania State Police. What is the appropriate amount? How much are we taking now? And how should we design this arrangement in the future? What should it be?
Well, the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee did a report that indicated the appropriate amount is about $500 million a year. Personally, I think that's excessive, but that's their study, so let's start with that. Right now, in this current budget, we're at $778 million a year, down from 802. But if you look at you look at $250 million over, on an annual basis, that drains out a lot of money that could be used to continue to fix bridges, continue to fix our roadways, improve things, improve our maintenance, and that sort of thing. Just last year, when the legislature voted to cap that at 802 and start a 10-year kind of rollback period, which is a very positive thing. Don't get me wrong; we'd like to see it a little faster, but it gets us going in the right direction. PennDOT was able to program, that's look at long-term plans and so forth, an additional $1.2 billion into both maintenance and construction. So you can see direct results from that.
Well, Bob, unfortunately, we've run out of time. That's always a problem.
Sure.
We love having you come, and we need to stay abreast of certainly the rebuilding of the Commonwealth's infrastructure. So Maura and I look forward to having you back soon. And we look forward to seeing you again next week on Behind the Headlines. We'll see you then.